So what we did in Ithaca was a bit more descriptive than what you find in the NCLB reporting. But the first part of your question was?
Just kind of the ramifications of failing. Like
Yeah.
I know things
Okay, so what happens if you don't meet these federal requirements? And what this means is that in any given year, every single one of your subgroups, whether it's girls, boys, non-poor kids, poor kids, black kids, white kids, Hispanic kids, and on and on, Asian kids, any one of those groups, special ed, not special ed, doesn't meet what they call the AYP. And AYP is this kind of an artificial goal. It's like if you take wherever the district started in about 2002, okay, and let's say they started their average was 100 points, or it's a 200-point exam, so 100 points. And then by 2014, they had to get to 200, or a perfect score. Okay, so you'd go from 100 to 200. You just plot a line between where you are now and where you need to go. And then each individual increment there, that's your AYP. And so whenever you don't make the AYP for any individual grouping, okay, after 1 year, you get cited, and you get your name in the newspaper, and you're on these, what we call the bad list. The state of New York calls it the SINI list, schools in need of improvement. Okay? Not the SIN list, the SINI list. I think I've lost it. Okay, I'll just laugh at that one. And so what are the ramifications? So after year 1, you get your name, you get publicly scolded. Okay, after year 2, you're required to begin to change the academic program that relates to whatever area of testing that was. So you need to do something like English curriculum if it's an English exam. Year 3, you need to start changing administrators. Meaning 3 successive years of failure in any of these groups. If you correct the problem and fix it 1 year and pass, then the next year you start back at square 1. So it's consecutive years of failure. So so 3rd year is administration. 4th year, you start to get the details here. 4th year is more substantial, kind of more full school reform. It's more systematic curricular change with the kind of smoothing of teachers and the principals really on the hot seat. After 5 years, so there's 5 consecutive years of failure on any given measure. Okay? The school as a whole gets shut down and then reopened up, kind of reorganized as either a charter school or is run by the state or under new leadership. Meaning a private firm can come in and start running the school. Now the reality of that is, while that's in the legislation, the reality of that is we haven't seen a ton of that until the last couple of years. It's 5 consecutive years, and we've only been at this for about 8 years with NCLB. And so we have seen some that have been closed down and changed into a charter school. Some that have been shut down and changed into leadership. But as we push forward, and now that we're fully implemented with NCLB, we're going to see more of this. And so you see a steady growth of charter schools across the country, and this is one such motivator for that. So and again, what's really important about NCLB is that the individual testing that states engage students in is not about the individual kid. There's very few individual ramifications for that kid of not passing. Okay? The school, it's a ramification comes to the school. Okay? The school gets on the list. The kids don't get held back by grades. Okay? There's no financial implications for the kid. Okay? And, contrary to popular belief, there's no immediate financial implications for the school. Many people think if you fail a couple years in a row, you're going to lose your federal funding. Not true. Not true. In fact, the feds actually give you some extra money to try to correct this. Then after 5 years, if you haven't done it, they shut you down and reopen.
Just in the interest of time, I wonder if you could clarify something briefly or explain or articulate just a little bit. When we're looking at factors that create or contribute to the achievement gap, 2 main things are brought up: socioeconomic status and race. And I think that funds, money, resources, that kind of thing is really obvious how that can contribute to a child's ability to achieve and stay on par with others who have a different socioeconomic status. I just wonder if you could briefly explain what race has to do with it.
Yeah.
Why is that? Does that indicate some sort of just lack of ability?
Yeah.
Is it genetic? You know, what's that all about? Why is that even in there?
Yeah. Good question, okay? And so we'll put socioeconomic status aside, although it's not unrelated to what I'll say here. What does it do with race? Okay? And you know and I know that for many, many years, there are folks, one group of people say it's genetics. You've heard this, okay? One group that says it's genetics. Very little evidence of anything. That's just, it's out there. Some people argue that. Okay? Other people argue it's absolutely a cultural thing. Okay? And the example we use in my class, we just did this this past week, is if I'm a teacher in a classroom and I say, okay, isn't it time to get out of homework now? Shouldn't we all stand up right now? Shouldn't we all stand up? Shouldn't we stand up? Dialectic language pattern, and this is again, there's many, many explanations, but one such one that's actually quite interesting is the way we actually talk. Now, what I mean by we is the normative environment of most schools across the country, okay, which have about 80 to 85% teachers who are of white European descent, okay? And so when a teacher says, isn't it time to get our homework now, many of the kids in the classroom who are familiar with that pattern of conversation, that pattern of talking, hear a statement, hear a declarative statement, I gotta get my homework out. Other kids who are from a different, they're used to a different dialect, different way of actually phrasing words, sentences, okay? Hear a question. And if you're a student and you hear a question, you hear the teacher say, isn't it time to get on homework now? Or shouldn't you put that away now? You're thinking the teacher just asked a question. And you don't do it. So let's say you didn't stand up, okay? And I'm staring at you. And finally you say, what? Why are you looking at me? And I say, I told you to get your homework out. And you're thinking, no you didn't. You asked me a question. There's some pretty good evidence that this kind of thing goes on all the time, okay? Native American kids, many Latino kids, when an adult is speaking to them, particularly when the voice is raised, what do they do with their eyes? What is culturally embedded from the time they're born? What do they do with their eyes? Their eyes look down. What's the teacher want? If I'm talking to you and I'm getting more and more mad, what do I want you to do? Look right at me. And what are you going to do if you're from a different cultural environment? You're going to look down, and the more I yell, the more you're looking down, because that's what it's been your whole life. And you get thrown out of class so fast because you're being disrespectful to me. And you're in big trouble. Now you're a troublemaker. So there's this whole phenomenon, okay, which are very subtle. You have very, very well-intentioned teachers. Very good evidence of well-intentioned teachers who talk about, I want to serve all my kids. I want to serve the poor kids. I want to serve the black kids. I want to serve the Native American kids. I want to serve. But the way they do it is in such a way that is harmful to the kids. Intentions aren't everything. A lot of people have good intentions, and mechanically how they actually engage, how they run their classroom has differential impacts. Okay? So there's that explanation. A third explanation is just these assumptions, deeply ingrained in our culture. Okay? And I've heard Asian kids talking about this. They sit in a math class, the teacher assumes they know the answer all the time. I've had students tell me, I didn't know